could easily hide, but I was tired and didn't think about it. As I walked off, I heard a bang, but this time it was on my window of my house. And as I looked out the window, I saw Nightmare Files. This story takes place on one of the best nights for kids around America, but one of the worst nights for me. It was Christmas Eve of 2019. For a little backstory, 3 or 4 months before this event took place, I broke up with my girlfriend. The event that caused me to break up with her was she stole over $900 from me. I called her and all she said was, before she left, that this isn't over. Fast forward 3 months to Christmas Eve. Since we live in Texas and have a house in the hills, every year on Christmas my family usually goes there to celebrate Christmas. However, this year, I couldn't make it because I had to work. This year I was 17 years old and just got a job by a local supermarket and had to work all Christmas Day. I had no problem being home alone. On Christmas Eve night, it was getting late, probably 11 o'clock or so. I decided to take a shower and go to bed as I needed to get up early for the next day. As I started to shower, I heard a strange noise coming from the garage, sort of like a metallic banging or something dropping. I thought it was some form of a heater because I put the water as hot as I could. I took my shower. When I finished my shower, I went to go to bed, and as I did, I heard the noise again. Although this time, it was on the other side of the yard. I was confused because I didn't think there was anything over there. I went to go look outside the window and see. I looked out and didn't see anything but my backyard, completely empty. I completely disregarded it because my backyard is pretty flat and empty, and it has nowhere for someone to hide. Now it's hard to explain, but my window is fairly large, and it has a blind spot to the left where there's a corner where someone could easily hide, but I was tired and didn't think about it. As I walked off, I heard a bang, but this time it was on my window of my house, and as I looked out the window, I saw the figure of a person dressed in all black standing at my window. It made me jump, however, I wasn't too scared as I am fairly a large dude and a high school football player. This all changed when he reached for his pocket for what I assumed was a gun. I ran away from the window toward my parents' room to go retrieve my dad's shotgun. I knew he kept it in the safe and had the safe key under his pillow. As I was running to retrieve this, I dialed 911. As soon as the dispatcher answered, I heard the horrific sound of the glass shattering. I made it to my parents' room and I shut the door quietly. I whispered into the phone what was happening to the dispatcher. She said to stay on the line as the county sheriff was en route, but it would take about 5 minutes or so. I told her I was going to retrieve the shotgun. She said that's not a bad idea, but only use it if I had to, with caution. I quickly realized my dad took the gun with him because they were going to the gun range. I informed the dispatcher that the gun was gone. She said to make sure to stay on the line. For a moment, everything was silent, and I thought that it may have been a burglar, and they got spooked when they realized someone was home. My heart sank into my chest when I heard not one, but 2 sets of boots walking up the stairs. I heard a heavy metal pole scraping the floor. I locked and barricaded the door to my parents' room. Then I almost passed out when I heard one of them talk. Not in any voice, but my ex-girlfriend's voice. She said, "Merry Christmas, Tommy," and I heard a male voice mockingly say, "We know you're in there." And he knocked on the door of my parents' room. I almost screamed and got underneath the bed. My ex then said, "Don't worry if you can't open the door. We'll open it for you." I heard the pole hit the door and the lock falling out of the door to the floor. I had to put my hand over my mouth to keep from being too loud. All of a sudden, I heard police sirens and my ex muttering, "Oh shit." They ran down the stairs to run out the front door when the officer said, "Freeze." I heard a bunch of yelling and then an officer came in and said, "If you're in there, make yourself known." I called out to him saying I was Tommy and I called 911. He told me to come out slowly with my hands visible. As I left my parents' room, I saw the two being escorted out in handcuffs. The rest of my night consisted of paperwork and me talking to my parents who were making a 3-hour drive to come home. This incident was very disturbing to me, and I'm grateful that I reacted the way that I did. Had I not, I might be dead right now. Christmas is usually everyone's favorite time of the year. It was certainly my favorite time of the year until one night that changed everything. It was the Christmas of 2018. I was sitting in my living room watching the snow get heavier and heavier. The scene created the holiday atmosphere. I was enjoying myself drinking a cup of hot cocoa until I heard a knock on my door. I thought, who could be here at this hour? It was 1:18 in the morning. I got up to open the door, and to my surprise, I saw nobody. I closed the door thinking I was being ding-dong ditched at this time, or it was all in my head. 5 minutes later, another knock on my door. I once again got up to open the door, and no one was there. So I shut it. Almost immediately after another knock on my door at this time, I was quick enough to swing the door open, and I could just get a glimpse of a kid, looked about 5 or 6 years old, running towards a house that was adjacent to mine. Quite surprisingly, I never knew who lived there, and quite frankly, I never seemed to care. However, this time I wanted to know why such a little kid was out roaming about in the middle of the night, so I planned to go over there the next morning. Morning finally came, and I headed towards the house where I'm sure I saw the little boy run into. To my surprise, nobody answered the door. I figured they weren't home, and I would come back later. That evening, I tried going back to the house, and once again, I knocked, no answer. This was quite strange. I then tried the side door, and to my surprise, the door wasn't locked. Curiosity got the better of me, and I unlawfully entered the house, knowing I wasn't breaking and entering. As soon as I entered the house, I smelled something foul in the air, the smell of rotting meat. The inside of this house looked like nobody had lived there for years. I decided to check out the upstairs of the house. I climbed up the stairs and I went to the top step. There were about 5 bedrooms adjacent to each other. I checked out the one on my right. Nothing too special, just a bed and a closet. I checked out the rest of the rooms and found nothing. Great, I thought to myself. This was a complete waste of my time. And just as I was about to leave, a woman tapped me on my shoulder. It startled me. I knew I was caught red-handed, but just as I could say anything, the woman put her hand over my mouth and shushed me. I slowly backed away and sprinted back to my house. I heard the blood-curdling scream of a woman telling me to come back. I got back to my house and I decided to not call the cops. At 3 a.m., I woke up to sounds outside of my window. I looked out and I saw the same woman staring back at me with a wide smile that ran across her face. Her crazed eyes stared back at me on the other side of the glass. I fell back in shock and I dialed 911, and the cops were at my location within minutes. I had told them what happened, and they searched the house and found nothing. They told me there were no signs of anyone there since the horrifying murder that took place inside the very house. I was shocked. I haven't heard of what happened at all, and it was an ongoing investigation. The cops weren't even able to give me information, so I desperately wanted to know, though. The next day, I did some research, and what I found made me puke. On December 31st, a mother and her son were brutally murdered inside that same house, and their bodies are yet to be found. I linked everything together, and I stared at myself in the mirror in pure horror. The events that took place this day changed me forever. The next 8 months, I quit my job and had to get therapy for the rest of the year. I started looking into depression and into thoughts of ending my own life. I would wake up at late hours of the night and see this woman's crazed smile staring down at me, and I would scream in pure horror. It's been a year since this traumatizing experience, and I have never been the same person as I used to be. By the time you read this, I'll be dead or somewhere far away, very far away. I live on a remote, quiet street in a relatively small town. For the sake of my safety and privacy, I will not disclose the town, as I still live there to this day. It was the last day of school before Christmas break, and like any other ninth grader, I was excited to be home and play the new Call of Duty that was coming out that year. A little background here: since I was in the 6th grade, I always walked home. Today was no different. I left school around 2:37 p.m., but this time I had to take a different route home, as my street had construction. I remembered a shortcut from when I was a little kid that I used to take to school when my road or usual route was blocked or closed due to some reason. I started making my way down the side road as I did years before, when I noticed a black Ford following me awful close, but doing the speed limit, probably to avoid suspicion. I took a few turns to see if this vehicle was following me, and sure enough it was. I eventually made it home, and when I did, I told my parents, who then passed it off as being over paranoid, and that was that. Fast forward a few days, and it was Christmas Eve. No sign of that car and no further incidents, until 11 p.m. rolled around, and we were settling in for bed. I remember doing my routine when my dog started barking. I yelled and said, "Shut up." I eventually got up and let them out. I want to say 8 minutes passed when I was startled out of bed, a man screaming in pain outside my window. I looked up to see my dad with a shotgun running outside to the dogs. I rushed out of my bed to the window, and just as I got there, I heard my dad yelling at this guy. And then he shot the back of the guy's black Ford speeding down our road. A police report has been filed, and it's been 4 years since the incident, and I'm now finishing school and looking at colleges. The police never found him, and I still sleep with my dogs by my bed, so the man who tried to ruin my Christmas doesn't come back.
Nightmare Files.